Hey guys, welcome back to Explainer X. Today, I am going to recap a 1991 romance drama movie, named Close My Eyes. So, let's begin. The movie begins with Richard showing up at his stepsister Natalie's house for dinner. Natalie looks quite upset on this to Richard, because she recently broke up with her boyfriend. Seeing this, Richard takes her for a walk outside. Both of them were sitting in a restaurant. That's when Richard talks too much to Natalie. Natalie likes this thing very much, and she forgets her sorrow. After this, Natalie says thanks to Richard at night, because today she had a lot of fun. Meanwhile, Natalie suddenly kisses Richard, but soon she realizes that she has done wrong, so she says sorry to Richard and goes to sleep. But only then we can understand by looking at Richard, that he didn't mind Natalie doing this, and now Richard has started liking Natalie. But despite all this, Richard does not say anything to Natalie. After this we see the scene after 2 years. At this time Richard was going to another city for his work, so Natalie comes to drop Richard off at the station. The next day when Natalie calls Richard, Richard is with his secretary. On coming to know about this, Natalie hangs up the phone. Then many years pass, and now Natalie had also married a man named Sinclair. Then one day Natalie calls Richard and invites him for lunch at her house, and tells her that you also meet my husband Sinclair. Friends, let me tell you that Richard could not come to Natalie's wedding. That's why till date Richard has not met Natalie's husband. Then the next day Richard comes to Natalie's house for lunch, and there he is surprised to see Sinclair's house, because his house was very luxurious and big, and Richard had no idea about this, that Sinclair is so much richer. When he enters the house, Sinclair and his family welcome Richard. After this Sinclair and Richard talk a lot. During this, Richard finds out that today is Natalie's birthday, and for this reason Natalie had called to meet him today, because Richard had forgotten Natalie's birthday. Then when Natalie was cutting the cake, then Richard was constantly watching her, and we can understand by the way he looks, that even after so many years had passed, Richard could not forget Natalie, and to this day he still likes her. Then after this we see Richard working in his office the next day, where after a while Natalie comes with Sinclair, or says Natalie Richard, that she has to have some urgent conversation with him. That's why she will come to Richard's house today, and Richard also agrees to this. The same day Natalie comes to meet Richard at his house, but she was too late. That's why Richard gets very angry at him at first, but Natalie apologizes to him for this. Soon after, she kisses Richard again, but soon she backs down, because she felt that she was repeating the same mistake again. But Natalie could not hold herself for long, after which both of them make physical relationship. After this, before leaving, Natalie tells Richard, whatever happened between us, you forget it, and from today onwards both of us will never do this thing. Then we see Sinclair and Richard talking. Sinclair tells Richard that he is going to go on a picnic with his family soon. That's why he invites Richard to go along with him. But Natalie forbids Richard to go with him because Natalie has realized that Richard likes her, but Richard still goes on picnic with them. And Richard was just clicking pictures of Natalie here. Disturbed by this, Natalie gets up and goes to the other side, but Richard goes after her. Then from their conversation we learn that Natalie did not want Richard to come on the picnic, because she was very embarrassed by what happened between them, and she thought they had made a mistake. Richard again with Natalie when he comes home, tries to talk about that night, on which Natalie also says that we cannot do all these things here. For this we have to go to some other private place. Then after a while Natalie remembers that Sinclair's parents have gone out for a walk and there is no one at their house, so she tells Richard to meet her after a few days on Sinclair's parents' house. Here she also clarifies this point, that after meeting, both of them will just talk, and Richard also agrees to this. In the same night, Natalie tells Sinclair that she will have to go out for a few days at work, but Sinclair says that she has no problem with it and can leave, and we can understand that Natalie is going to lie to Sinclair and spend time with Richard at her parents' house. We then see Richard and Natalie at Sinclair's parents' house. Both of them had come here to talk, but again they do what they had done last time. Meanwhile, Natalie also calls Sinclair and inquires about his condition so that Sinclair does not suspect him. A few days pass by doing this, and since day one, Sinclair was facing a lot of problems in the kitchen, so he calls to talk to Natalie at her hotel, but on calling, he comes to know that the hotel which Natalie has taken, told him the name, didn't stay there. Now Sinclair had to talk to Natalie in any condition, so he calls all the hotels in the city and asks about Natalie, but Natalie didn't stay in any of those hotels because as we all know that Natalie was just enjoying the full time with Richard. Now all this makes Sinclair suspicious of Natalie, and he starts feeling that Natalie is having an affair with someone. On the other hand, Natalie realizes that they are doing a lot of wrong, so she tells Richard to stop all this, but by now Richard was madly in love with Natalie, so he does not believe that Natalie says that you have a girlfriend, you should make it so that you will not remember me. After this, when Natalie does not return home, Sinclair asks her about the hotel. To this Natalie lies that the hotel was nice enough because she was unfazed that Sinclair had found out she hadn't stayed at any of the hotels. On the other hand, Richard gets into a relationship with his ex-girlfriend and then he calls and tells Natalie about it. Hearing this, Natalie could not speak much because Sinclair was sitting next to her. But the next day we see Natalie crying after looking at Richard's photos so that we can understand what she feels for Richard inside. After this, Richard and Natalie meet in a hotel, where Natalie tells Richard that now they have to stop dating because she feels that Sinclair got suspicious, and so the last time he inquired about Natalie's hotel, Richard is not ready to accept it because he fell in love with Natalie, but Natalie leaves by giving him a kiss. After this a few days pass and Richard was missing Natalie a lot, so he comes to her house. But upon reaching there, he learns from Sinclair that Natalie is not at home at the moment. Since then Sinclair takes Richard with him on voting. From here, Sinclair tells Richard that he thinks that Natalie is having an affair with someone else. On this Richard says that you are thinking wrong. This is not right. Actually Richard was telling her because he was having an affair with Natalie. Then Sinclair tells him that Natalie once lied to me about his hotel, so I guess she goes to meet someone. This is what he tells Richard: Natalie is your sister, so you must know who she is having an affair with, but Richard denies it and says that I don't know anything like that. Now after hearing this, Sinclair tells Richard that I made a plan to find out about it, but Sinclair does not tell anything to Richard about the plan. After talking all this, when both of them come back home, by then Natalie also comes home. It was over then Richard gets bad news from Natalie that Natalie is also going to stay with Sinclair in America forever. Richard is shocked to hear that, because now she will never be able to meet Natalie. After this, when Richard and Natalie meet in a restaurant, Natalie tries to convince Richard that they have to stop all this or else they will ruin each other, but Richard didn't agree with Natalie at all, and he forbids Natalie to go to America. During this, if he starts crying too much, then Natalie, after explaining her, she leaves with Sinclair. Now Richard was feeling much worse than this, due to which he tries to commit suicide by taking sleeping medicine, but saves him by coming at the right time and going ahead invites Natalie Richard to a party so that people were giving their friends and family to say goodbye. After this we directly watch the scene of the party, where Richard sees Natalie quite happy with Sinclair and then he starts following Natalie everywhere. Further, Richard gets very angry on Natalie and says that he only used her. She used to come close to him whenever she wanted, but she never thought about it, and when you fall in love with her then Natalie is leaving him forever. Now after hearing all these things, Natalie also realizes her mistake and she apologizes to Richard for his actions. Also, she tells him a secret, that those people are not going to America. The deal because of which they were going to America has been cancelled, but still they had to party, so they did not cancel the party. Now after hearing, Richard becomes a saint because Natalie there was nowhere to go, and now he could meet Natalie like before. After that we see Sinclair, Natalie and Richard together, where we come to know from their words that Sinclair had already come to know about Natalie and Richard's affair. Actually Sinclair had lied about going to America, and it was a part of his plan because he knew that after going to America, the boyfriend would feel very bad, and because Richard started behaving very strange after hearing this, which Sinclair understood that Natalie's affair is going on not with anyone else but with her own brother Richard. Press enclave this thing, and then he tells both of them to end it all here. Both of them agree to this, and Sinclair also forgives them because he did not want to lose Natalie further. We three of them let's see while going somewhere, and with this our movie ends here. I hope you enjoyed the video, so click any video of three of them and enjoy next. Please don't forget to subscribe our channel, and please like the video and tell us in the comment how you like the video. I see you soon.